too early. Good evening, ghouls and fiends, and welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I am your host, Tezz, and we're back. It's a late recording in the week. We're recording this on a Sunday, but better late than never, hey? Oh god, it's been a week. There's been plenty of horror. I'll get into what I've been watching for the October challenge. Get into that shortly. Gaming just hasn't happened. It's just been so hectic with just life in general. When isn't there stress? It is one of those things. Just lots and lots going on. But I have been managing to squeeze in horrors so far. Although I am technically not up to date because yesterday I didn't get a chance to get a horror film watched, but I will try and catch up today. And if not, definitely tomorrow. I don't want to let it get away from me again. But it's I'm one day behind. I've done very well up until yesterday, but yesterday was its own stuff. I hope everyone is well and has been enjoying the start to spooky season, whether you've been watching horror, playing horror games, reading horror books, and just generally keeping things spooky, having a good time. As mentioned, it has been the 31 days of horror. There's a few different outlets which will have their own, kind of challenge lists. There's not like one definitive thing, like if you want to watch whatever horror you want to watch, do so. But I have shared in the Discord previously the Nightmare on Film Street 31 Days of Halloween Horror Challenge. So I'll kind of run through where I'm at on that. So day 1 is Horror Anthology. I watched Trick or Treat. Day 2, Tim Burton. I went for a first-time watch of Corpse Bride. It was alright. 3, Revenge. I went with The Devil's Rejects. I haven't seen that for a very long time. And then for 4, Down in the Underground, I went for Mimic, the Guillermo del Toro horror from 1998, I want to say. So the next one's up, Jordan Peele for the 5th, and Ghost Story for the 6th. So Jordan Peele's going to be an awkward one because I really enjoyed Get Out, but I only watched that again pretty recently, as in like within the last month or so. And I don't really have an interest in rewatching Us. I didn't really think that was that good. And nope, I turned off halfway through. It wasn't really interesting me at all. I know he's produced a few things, such as Candyman. So I may give that a rewatch because that wasn't necessarily bad. It was decent. I did feel that the finale was a bit of a McGubbins with the reveal of who was behind some of the things. It was one of those, I guess, almost Jordan Peele-esque final thirds where it tries to answer the questions, which is admirable. It's great, but they either don't make sense or they're a bit convenient, too convenient for convenience sake. So I could watch that, but I am tempted to watch 2 episodes to make up film length of The Twilight Zone, which I know he produced. So again, it's not something he's directed, but it doesn't say Jordan Peele directed, just says Jordan Peele. Hell, I could just watch a few episodes of Key and Peele, and I'm sure that might count. And then for Ghost Story, I'm going to do some research. I want to find a classic ghost story that I've not seen before. I have a feeling that I've never seen Burnt Offerings. So maybe I'll go for that if that is on any of the streaming services that I currently have. Not too sure, but I'll find something. Yeah, and outside of that, sorry, I just feel a bit knackered today. Outside of that, my business, my self-employed business. Obviously, I'm not, I have a job. I have a full-time job. As we all do, we have bills to pay, etc., etc. But where I've been getting my qualifications, memberships, etc., I decided, well, let's put that to use, and as a second job, go self-employed in that second job. So if you're in the UK, I'll say UK specifically, I can't offer these services internationally, and need bookkeeping needs, need payroll management done for your business, need financial statements prepared for yours, if you're a sole trader or part of a partnership, if you need your VAT submissions calculated and processed, or also if you are looking to get computerized accountancy software in your business and you need implementation and training. Those are the sorts of services that T.S. Eliot Bookkeeping offer. So if any of that interests you, or you know anyone in the UK that may be interested in those services remotely, head to tseliot.co.uk. So that's tseliott.co.uk. They're also on socials, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Check it out. The dogs obviously make quite an appearance in my marketing. So if you like dogs, you can watch those. But give the pages a follow and, yeah, get in contact if those services are of any need for you. Bit of a shameless self-plug there, but hey, got to do what you got to do. So for today's show, I'm going to try and keep this brief. I've got a lot to try and fit in today, but you know, hey ho, I work best under pressure. So we've got news to talk about, and then ultimately we've just got 2 films to review. I did wonder, should I talk about the films more in depth that I've been watching each week for the 31 Days of Halloween? But no. The reviews would get less and less and less in depth because I'd be trying to cover like 7 films per episode. So no, not happening. We've got 2 films we're going to review. The first of which is Apartment 7A, the prequel to Rosemary's Baby, which is currently on Paramount Plus in the UK. I don't know where else. And then VHS Beyond, the latest entry in the VHS series, has dropped onto Shudder on Friday this past week. So I'm going to be reviewing that as well. But without further ado, Ghouls and Fiends, let's get to some horror news. This is the news. Ho, 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 ho.
This is God.
There we go. That's it. That's the news jingle. That's what you all listen for. So, as per usual, all this news comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Great news source. Check them out. Reviews, editorials, all that stuff. First up is the first week of October kicks off with, fucking hell, 15 new horror movies. Now, I have not had time to watch these trailers. Apologies. I probably could have done this morning. I ended up watching WWE Bad Blood. That was 3.5 hours long. So, me doing this, complaining about busy, and I sat and watched wrestling for a while. But sometimes you got to just take a moment to sit down and catch up on these things. It's, you know, otherwise you just bang your head against the wall. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch 15 trailers. That's madness. But for horror fans, as you all are, this is great news. 15 new horror films. So this right comes from johnsquires.com. Let's be kind of just brief about this. First up, just when you thought it was safe to take out the trash, the Screambox original horror comedy Crackoon landed on our streaming service and VOD platforms this past Tuesday. The film has been fittingly described as Rocket Raccoon meets Cocaine Bear by Total Film, and you can watch the trailer for Crackoon below for a taste of the bloody madness. When a synthetically altered street drug is discarded in the woods by a drug dealer during a car chase with police, the fallout proves nothing less than horrific as an innocent raccoon eats it, transforming it into a nightmarish killing machine straight out from the bowels of hell. With unsuspecting campers, tourists, and residents of a mountain community all in close proximity to the epicenter, no one is safe from the monster's unrelenting rampage. Night of the Living Dead co-creator John A. Russo appears in the film alongside Rosario Ereso, Justin P. Martin, Gary Lee Vincent, Jessica Flux, Chris O'Brockie, Angel Bradford, Hunter Redfern, Tim Hale, Morrigan Thompson, and Tom Hoover. Brad Twigg directs from a script he co-wrote with Gary Lee Vincent and Todd Martin. Well, I would gather from the screenshot and from that blurb, you can probably expect what kind of film this may be. All I can hope is that it's fun. Because it looks pretty low rent, which doesn't mean it won't be fun. It may well be, but it's Rocket Raccoon meets Cocaine Bear. I got bored of Cocaine Bear. Like, it had some funny-ish moments, but it wasn't really for me. I imagine this might not be for me, but it's a Screambox original, and we don't get Screambox in the UK, so might be all for naught. Next up, sisters Madeline McGraw and Violet McGraw star in The Curse of the Necklace from Warner Bros., released on VOD outlets on October 1st. In the supernatural film, an antique necklace becomes a conduit for a tormented soul. I realised that there was a little video that played at the very start of the show, and I just completely just disregarded what I have done this week, which we have to discuss. It's probably worth me just sort of pausing the news to jump to that, because I will forget. I've got a terrible memory, and as I say, I'm stressing myself out with things to do today. So let's just park the news for a moment. There you go. You get a little bit of the jingle just there. So this past Friday, I got my belated birthday present. Well, I got plenty of birthday presents on my birthday, which was amazing. But the main kind of present was a ticket to go to an event down the road from me called the Howl. The Howl is a they can see on screen me with the crazy man, who's actually quite intimidating. It's a scream park. It's basically, you have like last year there was a Circus of Horrors event, which happened every hour on the hour for about 20 minutes. This year it was Cabinet of Evil or Cabaret of Evil. They had a funnier way of putting it, but it was a cabaret show, but of evil. It was pretty cool. Very impressive stuff in that. But you have these haunted house rooms littered around this this large open farm. There's food stalls as well. There's beer, live music. It's pretty good. So I went there with my fiance, also friends James and Tom, and Tom's wife Kaylee, and man, it was a great time. I mean, me and the lads had a couple of drinks beforehand, so we were all pretty buzzed. I think that kind of helps with the gets you a bit more enthusiastic. But even without that, you have a great time because, well, I mean, it's kind of like the UK's version of Halloween Horror Nights. You go around these routes in these houses that all have different themes, with actors jumping out at you and scaring the dickens out of you. I have to say, the last two, we managed to get through all of the houses, which I think all of them, pretty sure all of them, which was quite a push because time quickly ticked on as it does when you're enjoying yourself. So we had to kind of run through like the last few houses. I spent way too much on pick and mix, which is also ridiculous. But I think that was because of fear. Fear was taken over at that point. But I'll kind of quickly put on a little video on screen, which was approaching the event, and the first impression I had last year when I was approaching the gates was, oh, okay, this looks a lot bigger than I was expecting. Because when there's an event happening in your town, and for me, at least last year, my new town, you kind of don't really know what to expect, and you sort of assume it's going to be fairly kind of small scale. But this kind of looked like kind of going to a festival, and then they've got pyro shooting out of the roof of the entrance, which is really, really, really quite cool to see. And then as you're going around the location, there's actors who just jump out at you looking crazy. And over here on the screen at the moment, some weird sort of Pied Piper guy just suddenly appeared blowing his pipe at us. And we got through these various houses. There was a new one called Noxious Alley, which had all this like neon paint on the walls, and it had this kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Maxy sort of future thing going on. And it again had what was previously, I think last year, a Funhouse theme. This year it had that, but it had this room where you go across this long bridge, and the room looks like it's spinning because of the artwork going around the wall. Because I'd had quite a few at this stage, because we had a couple of drinks there, quite a few pints, I was struggling. That room was making everything spin for me. It was, Jesus. And then the last two houses, my God. There was the adrenaline of us trying to get through them as quick as possible so we could get them all done. But also the last two are in pitch black. There was very little that you can see. And that just made everything so much more like intense. Because you're trying to go around these corners, someone's jumping out at you, there's things hanging off the ceiling, there's all this weird horror like items, like limbs hanging from a butcher's room. And then because I think we were like the last ones there, you've then got the actors then following behind you. So you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, getting all jumpy, getting all nervous, trying to walk ahead. And you turn around and there's people still behind you. And at the end of the last room, there's a big, big guy there with a chainsaw. So I sort of got outside thinking, oh, God, my heart is beating. And then I hear, rum, 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 rum. Turn around, he's running at me with a chainsaw. So I then sprint away, and I'm not I'm not made for running. And so yeah, I was suffering a bit for it for the next day, and my voice went very early on from shouting and screaming. Let's be honest. Um, but an incredible thing. So if something like the Howl comes to your town or city, it's definitely worth checking out. Even if it's like even the people I went with, they'd lived here for many years and had never gone. They'd heard maybe about it, but just never really looked into it. But we were all massive fans and had a great time. So there we go. While I remember the Howl. Okay, so back to the news. There we go. The Curse of the Necklace from Warner Brothers released on October 1st. In the supernatural film, an antique necklace becomes a conduit for a tormented soul. The Davis family is going through some tough times in 1960. Laura and Frank have separated because after years of Frank's unpredictable alcohol-infused temper, Laura has taken action and thrown him out the house. She's gone back to work as a nurse, which her 11-year-old Ellen and 16-year-old Judy don't like any more than their dad does. To try to get Laura back, Frank gives her a beautiful antique necklace he finds in an old 1938 evidence bag at the station. And though Laura doesn't want to be bought, Frank leaves the necklace at the house where Laura and the girls live. But the necklace is a conduit for the tormented soul of an evil boy from long ago, and Laura and her daughters find themselves in a terrible danger from a little boy who no longer exists. Henry Thomas and Sarah Lind also star. Okay, I mean, it's a Warner Brothers horror, supernatural, spooky film. That's a mixed thing. There's a good background there with a number of their releases that that they've been attached to either as distributors, I'm assuming. It looks like there's a bit of money behind it, but I haven't seen the trailer. Again, I'm going to have to be a bit brief on these. I haven't seen them. I don't know what I think of them. But it's a decent cast. Did it mention who's directing? No, it didn't, which is odd. That is odd. Next up, Oscar winner Ariana DeBose stars as a high-pressure chef in House of Spoils, a new genre-bending thriller that arrives on Prime Video October 3rd. The film follows a chef as she opens a restaurant on a remote estate where she battles kitchen chaos, crushing self-doubts, and a haunting presence who threatens to sabotage her. Barbie Ferreira, Arian Moayed, Amara Karan, Mikkel Brad Silstedt, and Martin Koskos also star. It's the second feature film from writer-director Bridget Savage Cole and Danielle Crudy. They previously co-directed Blow the Man Down. I didn't know this was a horror. I mean, supposedly it's more of a thriller, but I've seen bits and bobs, like trailers or the starts of trailers, and just assumed, oh, it's a drama about food preparation. But if there is a haunting presence, that gives an idea. There's going to be something a bit supernatural there. I will wait till I kind of hear some buzz about it. Especially this month, the horror watch list is already ridiculously big, so something in this list would have to be pretty special for me to go, yas, add that to my watch list. Such as the next one, although I'm hearing very mixed things. The long-awaited movie adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot from director Gary Doberman was released today, now streaming only on Max. It's in UK cinemas on October 11th, I believe. Salem's Lot 2024 is set to circa 1975, when King's book was first published. In the film, haunted by an incident from his childhood, author Ben Mears returns to his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, only to discover the town is being preyed upon by a bloodthirsty vampire and his loyal servant. The cast includes Lewis Pullman, Mackenzie Lee, Alfred Woodard, Bill Camp, John Benjamin Hickey, Nicholas Cravetti, Jordan Preston Carter, William Sadler, Spencer Treat Clark, Cade Woodward, Deborah Christopherson, and Pilar Asbiek. I'm just hearing a lot of mixed things. I mean, Stephen King himself had said that it's great, and he normally is quite honest whether he likes something or doesn't. He doesn't usually throw his support behind things if he doesn't seem to actually like it. As far as I'm aware, I could well be quoted incorrect. I could well be corrected on that from past quotes, maybe. I like the look of it. it does seem like it's going for quite an authentic feel, and there is a bit of news later on, which we can just jump into now, that the original version of this was due to be 3 hours long, which makes me think maybe the original plan, or plan at one point, was to do the classic TV miniseries of 2 hour-and-a-half episodes, perhaps. Don't know if that was ever on the cards. But that's how a lot of the Stephen King adaptations used to happen. But a lot of the response that I am seeing online is it's not very good. It doesn't really have any bite. Ha ha. It's a bit soulless. But I am interested to watch it because I like the original adaptation. I think it's decent enough. I did quite like the Rob Lowe version quite a few years back, and the book is brilliant. So I am going to be checking it out for sure, and make my own opinion up. Next up, Sarah Paulson stars in Searchlight Pictures' horror movie Hold Your Breath, which is now streaming on Hulu as part of the streamer's annual Huluween celebration. Alongside Paulson, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, Amian Miller, and Annalee Ashford lead the cast of the Hulu horror thriller from directors Carrie Krause and William Jones. Here's the official synopsis. In 1930s Oklahoma, amid the region's horrific dust storms, a woman is convinced that a sinister presence is threatening her family. Hold Your Breath is rated R for some violence and disturbing images. I've not seen the trailer for this. Once again, it's going to be on Hulu, so I imagine this may drop on Disney Plus in the UK. I won't check now because time. But Sarah Paulson is great. I think it's probably going to be worth a watch. I mean, it's set in 1930s. 1930s isn't really a period piece. It's 90 years ago, but I'm more of a modern or last 30 years sort of film sitting fan. I'd never find myself that interested in period pieces. But who knows? Who knows? Good cast. Next up, a party game turns into a terrifying nightmare in supernatural horror movie Spin the Bottle, featuring Justin Long as the local authority savvy to the paranormal. From Paramount Pictures, it arrives on digital outlets at home on October 4th. When a group of friends play Spin the Bottle in a house marked by a brutal massacre, they unknowingly unleash an evil spirit and start dying in terrifying ways. Now, the survivors must stick together to uncover the house's dark secrets and end the bloodshed. The horror movie stars Tanner Stein, Kaylee Kaneshiro, Tony Amendola, Ryan Whitley, Hal Compston, Angela Halili, Samantha Cormier, and Ali Larter, and Justin Long. Gavin Weinson directs from a script by John Cregan. It's a Justin Long film. It has my interest because I like the guy. He's brilliant. He's very funny, and he's done some decent horrors here and there. Not all of them decent. The vampire one I reviewed a little while ago, I did not really like. I thought it was dull, but on the whole, it has my attention. And Ali Larter from Final Destination is pretty good. You don't really see that much of her these days. These things happen. So I will try and keep an eye out for that. I do have Paramount Plus. I haven't noticed that appear yet, but I can't remember when I last looked. Next up, fresh off the film's premiere at Sundance earlier this year, Netflix opened up their checkbook and shelled out a whopping $17 million to acquire worldwide rights to It's What's Inside, and you'll be able to stream the festival hit on Netflix beginning Friday, October 4th. Oscar nominee Coleman Domingo is an exec producer on It's What's Inside, the thriller that drew raves at Sundance and South by Southwest for its blindsiding twists, breakneck turns, and incredible cast performances. The film marks the feature directorial debut of writer-director Greg Jardin, who's earning kudos for his creative and fearless choices. In the upcoming horror movie from Netflix, a group of friends gather for a pre-wedding party that descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend arrives with a mysterious game that awakens long hidden secrets, desires, and grudges. Brittany O'Grady, James Maracini, Alicia Debnam Carey, Gavin Leatherwood, Rainier Hardesty, and Nina Bloomgarden star in the genre-bending movie. Netflix track record for me is really kind of going downhill the last couple of years. We did The Deliverance, which was a Netflix exclusive that they spent a lot of money on, and I thought that was not great, really. Again, I haven't heard the buzz on this one. I haven't seen the trailer on this one. I'm just going to keep repeating myself. So not too sure. Not too sure on that. We've got another Netflix one coming up. Director Galda Getstula Eurasia brings the highly anticipated sequel, The Platform 2, to Netflix service for Halloween. In the sequel, a mysterious figure has managed to establish a new law in the platform, but can justice truly be enforced in hell, and who will enforce it? Melania Smith and Hovik Kurcherian star. I thought the first film was interesting. It didn't really leave much of an imprint on me. I mean, it was beautifully shot, but could I tell you much about the story in that? Not really. So the sequel coming, does that interest me that much? Personally, not. But if you enjoyed the original, I think you're probably going to be getting a bit more of the same, ramped up as the sequels tend to do. So keep an eye out for that. That is on Netflix now. Next up, the VHS franchise returns to Shudder with brand new Shudder original VHS Beyond, and the critically acclaimed new installment will be unleashed October 4th. From Shudder and Studio 71, the upcoming 7th installment of the series will feature 6 new blood-curdling tapes, placing horror at the forefront of a sci-fi inspired hellscape. We'll talk about that more because we're going to be reviewing it later on, so let's move along nicely. Dutch directorial duo Stefan Haas and Flip van der Kuel's English language debut, Crazy House, polarised Sundance audiences this year with its over-the-top lampooning of the 90s sitcom era, and XYZ is bringing it to your home and VOD outlets this Friday. Watch the official trailer for Crazy House, starring Nick Frost, below, which previews just how crazy this horror movie twist on the classic 90s sitcom is about to get. In the bonkers horror movie, when Russian workers in Bernie's house turn out to be wanted criminals, Bernie has to man up and save his 90s sitcom family. Nick Frost stars alongside Alicia Silverstone in the upcoming Crazy House, with the cast also including Jan Bijviot, Gate Janssen, Walt Klink, and Kevin Connolly. I enjoy Nick Frost. Of course. Spaced was pretty decent, but for me it has to be Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, which I wasn't that fussed with Hot Fuzz the first time I saw it, but it is brilliant. It is brilliant. And the end of the Cornetto trilogy, The World's End, I enjoy, but it isn't as good as the first two. I like the concept of this, that it's that really sort of typical zany 90s sitcom house where you've got, the piped in studio audience, but with the horror undertone. I think it has the opportunity, or the potential, I should say, to become a cult favourite if it's good. But I will need to just keep an eye out for it, see where it lands here in the UK. Up next, from director Stephen Kostansky, who did The Void and Psycho Gorman, who are both very unique films, is horror comedy Frankie Frico, and Shout Studios will unleash the 90s style movie in theatres October 4th. In Frankie Frico, after calling a late-night party hotline that promises out-of-this-world fun, uptight yuppie Connor Sweeney must battle the pint-sized forces of evil unleashed through his phone line, led by the maniacal rock-and-roll goblin Frankie Frico. Full plot synopsis is workaholic yuppie Connor has a dilemma. No one in his life respects him. Not his boss, not his co-workers, not even his wife Christina, who thinks he's an uptight square. Connor sees no way out of this existential rut until one night, channel surfing, he catches a bizarre ad for a party hotline hosted by a strange dancing goblin, Frankie Frico. Connor is entranced by Frankie's promises of wild and freaky adventures just a phone call away. Could this be the recipe to spice up his flavourless life? And then it continues from there. It feels like it's going to have more of the tone of Psycho Gorman than The Void. The Void was quite a serious film. It's quite full on. It's quite nasty. It's visually impressive. Psycho Gorman is very funny, very gory, and incredibly unique and inventive in its the stylized creations in there. It's like a horror version of Power Rangers, Ultraman, things like that. It was a wild ride. Like, the kids can be a little bit annoying at times, but ultimately Psycho Gorman was pretty darn fun. So this looks, from the image on screen, it's going to follow that sort of tone, and I'm all for that. If this drops on Shudder, which Psycho Gorman previously did, then I will definitely be checking it out, because that was a wild ride. Next, Spider-1 is back in the director's chair with Little Bites, produced by mother and son duo Cher and Chaz Bono. Hits theatres and VOD October 4th. Heather Langenkamp, Barbara Crampton, Bonnie Aarons, and Chrissy Fox star in Little Bites, which is produced by One Fox Productions. The horror film follows Mindy, a young widow and mother who desperately tries to protect her daughter Alice from the grips of a fiendish, flesh-eating monster named Aegyar. Mindy has been secretly sacrificing her own life by allowing the creature to slowly feast on her body as she keeps Alice hidden away at her grandmother's. I think we might have seen the trailer for this, maybe, a little while ago. Interesting. That does sound pretty darn interesting. I like the look of the creature, and it looks like the Creep in Creep. And by Creep, I'm talking about the original London Underground Creep, which was a traumatizing film the first time you see it as a kid. Not so much the found footage Creep, which is fine. Yeah, Little Bites, keeping an eye out for that for sure. Next, I'm trying to get through this as quick as possible. It may be fall, but the Black Phone star Mason Thames is gearing up for A Monster Summer, a spooky family adventure from director David Henry. Monster Summer arrives in theatres October 4th, 2024. When a mysterious force begins to disrupt their big summer fun, Noah and his friends must team up with a retired police detective to embark on a monstrous adventure to save their island. Johnny... Where did I get Johnny from? I'm looking at football scores at the same time. That's probably why. My bad. Lorraine Bracco, Nora Zahitner, Noah Cottrell, Abby James Witherspoon, Lila Pate, Julian Lerner, Patrick Renner, and Mel Gibson also star. The spooky family adventure movie, formerly titled Boys of Summer, was written by Cornelius Uliano and Brian Schultz. No, not for me. Doesn't sound like it's something I would end up watching, gonna be honest. Let's move along. Scott Goldberg's The Forest Hills will bring together Edward Furlong, Dee Wallace, and Shelley Duvall, with the film notably marking the late Shelley Duvall's final movie appearance and first in 2 decades. The Forest Hills releases in select theatres October 4th. Jamie Marsh recently joined the cast of the upcoming Werewolf movie, re-teaming with his Brain Scam co-star Edward Furlong. Chico Mendes, Felicia Rose, Linda Flores, Marianne Hagen, and Stacey Nelkin also star. The Forest Hills follows Rico, a man who is tormented by nightmarish visions after enduring head trauma whilst hiking in the Catskills. I mean, obviously it's marked. It's got some notableness in that it's Shelley Duvall's final appearance. Decent looking cast. I mean, you could question about recent output relating to that cast. Is it necessarily decent? But, you know, I like to try and have a little bit of optimism sometimes. Not seen the trailer, don't know. I don't know. It's difficult to comment on films like this, especially with so many of them. Next up, Quiver Distribution brings werewolf movie Operation Blood Hunt to VOD on Friday. The new World War II era action thriller meets horror film from actor-director Louis Mandielor and writer Brandon Slagle. Operation Blood Hunt follows prolific expert of the occult and whiskey, Reverend Conte, and a ragtag group of military rejects as they venture to a remote island in the South Pacific to investigate the unexplained disappearance of several United States Marine Corps battalions stationed there in 1944. While initial intelligence suggests the culprit to be that of the Japanese Imperial Army, the group soon discovers upon speaking with the island's inhabitants that the Marines may have been massacred by a group of lycanthropes known to most as werewolves. Golden Globe winner Jonathan Rhys-Meyers stars alongside mixed martial artist and former professional wrestler Quentin Rampage Jackson, Louis Mandielor, and Sonia Cooling. Could be fun. Looks a little bit low rent, gonna be honest. Yeah, it looks like it's trying to take a Dog Soldiers approach, but with World War II. Hey, maybe. If that's your sort of thing, check it out. It's out now. Oh, thank goodness. And that's it for the new films. Let's... I'm just trying to get through the news. It's my own fault leaving the show too, not too late to do, but you know what I mean. Later in the week to do. Next up, Vicious, The Strangers, director's new horror movie releasing in February 2025. This is from John Squires. Dakota Fanning is next teaming up with director Brian Bertino, who did The Strangers, I believe that must be the original, and Dark and the Wicked, for the horror movie Vicious, which has received a new release date today. Paramount Pictures will release Vicious on February 28th, 2025. The horror film had previously been set for August 8th, 2025. The plot follows a young woman who must spend the night fighting for her existence as she slips down a disturbing rabbit hole contained inside a mysterious gift from a late-night visitor. Catherine Hunter, Mary McCormick, Rachel Blanchard, and Devin Nakoda also star. Brian Bertino wrote the script and will be directing the film, an Atlas independent production. Belinda Whitaker serves as an executive producer, with Richard Sukul also producing. So, the original Strangers is decent. The Dark and the Wicked, I haven't seen that, actually. I think it's a film that's come out in the last year or two. I just haven't heard any buzz about it. For a while, I noticed it in the rental section for Amazon quite regularly, and it is now, I believe, on Sky Cinema, or it might be on Prime. I'm pretty sure it's on the streaming service for free if you're part of that service. But I haven't heard too much about it, whether it's people like it, whether people don't. Obviously, I need to probably watch a trailer and then see if that's something where I think I might enjoy it. But I haven't really heard anything about it. Okay. Interesting. Not much more I can say on that. Next up, The Running Man. Director Edgar Wright's Stephen King movie is releasing in 2025. John Squires write-up. Edgar Wright, of Shaun the Dead and Last Night in Soho fame, is directing a new take on Stephen King's The Running Man. And Paramount has announced the release date this afternoon. The Running Man will release in theatres on November 21st, 2025. Glenn Powell of Top Gun Maverick and Twisters fame will star. THR reports this afternoon that the actor will be joined by Love Lies Bleeding star Kathy O'Brien. Edgar Wright is directing the brand new movie adaptation of Stephen King's novel, and he will also produce along with his producing partner Nira Park and Simon Kinberg. King's novel, published under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman, was released in 1982, loosely adapted into the same titled Arnold Schwarzenegger starring film in 1987. In the film, in a dystopian America, a falsely convicted policeman gets his shot at freedom when he must forcibly participate in a TV game show where convicts must battle killers for their freedom. Last we heard, Wright's version was going to stick closer to King's source material. I've never read the original book. I do think I may have it. I've got the Bachman books, which is a paperback collection. I don't think it's of all of them. It may well be in there, but I haven't got it. It's in my massive to-be-read list, which is getting bigger and bigger, and I need to just stop buying books for quite a while. It is in there, that book. Whether that has The Running Man in it, I don't know. But I have always heard that there is quite a difference in its portrayal. It seems like it's quite a bleak story, the book, in terms of how it ends, but I like Edgar Wright. Last Night in Soho I thought was decent. I didn't think it was amazing, but it was beautifully shot. I thought the story was pretty good, and of course Shaun the Dead is Shaun the Dead. It's excellente. And then finally in the news, Matthew Lillard confirms his return in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Write-ups from Megan Navarro. Matthew Lillard is keeping very busy in the genre sphere. Not only does the actor have a role in Mike Flanagan's upcoming Life of Chuck and is gearing up to release horror-themed Macabre Spirits, but the actor has also confirmed to Forbes that he'll return for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is currently scheduled to release in theatres on December 5th, 2025. The actor couldn't reveal much about the anticipated sequel. He told Forbes, "Not much, to be honest. I will say that I think the filmmakers have done a great job of learning from the first movie of what fans want, and I think they're giving a lot more of that," Lillard reveals. "It's going to be more exciting, and I think it's going to have more action. It's going to have a lot of character development stuff. It's hard to kiss around it. I think the story ends, and this movie ends in a really exciting way." In last year's horror movie, after accepting a security guard job from Steve, Mike discovers an abandoned restaurant may actually be haunted by murderous animatronics. Lillard played Five Nights at Freddy's antagonist, William Afton, who received a rather grim comeuppance at the story's close. But Five Nights at Freddy's fans will know that death doesn't mean much when it comes to the game's dense lore, and the film ends with the origin of Springtrap, one of the game's most prominent villains. Also, backhandling the animatronics is Jim Henson's Creature Shop, confirmed by producer Jason Blum with a behind-the-scenes photo. Released in theatres and available for streaming on Peacock on the same day, the Emma Tammy-directed Five Nights at Freddy's was Blumhouse's highest-grossing movie of all time. In other words, it's no surprise that a sequel was quickly greenlit. I really was surprised by how much I enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's. I wasn't that familiar with the games other than seeing the odd Let's Play, and it looked very much like a very basic jump scare focused game. I did since, after watching the film, purchase the first game on Switch because it was dirt cheap. I haven't got very far on it. It is quite nervy. I don't really know what I'm doing on it. But the first film I thought was a lot of fun. I don't know what the feedback was like from fans in terms of, you know, Matthew Lillard saying they've listened to the fans, they're giving fans more of what they want. I'm assuming there must have been elements that the, you know, rabid fan base were like, what was all this about? We want more of this. Not too sure. But for me, I really enjoyed the narrative. I thought it was well-paced film, great performances. So I am looking forward to a Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And without further ado, that is it for the news. That was the news. And now it's time for reviews. Okay, Ghouls and Fiends, first up in the reviews. I watched this, it seems like an age ago, but it was probably about a week ago now. Apartment 7A. Apartment 7A is a 2024 American psychological thriller directed by Natalie Erika James from a screenplay she co-wrote with Christian White and Skylar James. It serves as a prequel to Rosemary's Baby. Julie Garner, Diane Wiest, Jim Sturgis, and Kevin McNally star. I am probably going to have to go to the IMDb page because the premise, however it's correctly pronounced, I always get it wrong, I'm told, is very, very short. But as per usual when it comes to these reviews, I will have a little talk about the film, the highs, the lows, and come up with a score out of 10. Okay, and the blurb on here is also incredibly small. So here we go. Here's a storyline. An ambitious young dancer, Terry Gianofrio, dreams of fame and fortune in New York City. But after suffering a devastating injury, an older, wealthy couple welcomes her into their home in the luxury apartment building, the Bramford. When fellow resident and influential Broadway producer offers her another chance at fame, it seems that all her dreams are finally coming true. However, after an evening she can't fully remember, disturbing circumstances soon have her second-guessing the sacrifices she's willing to make for her career. She soon realises that something evil is living not only in apartment 7A, but in the Bramford itself. The tagline to this is, Rosemary was not the first. I guess I felt with this, going into it and coming out of it, very similar to the first Omen. In that, is this really necessary? I think with prequels more often than not, I don't have that much interest in them. I think it's only really if it's something that's so mysterious that, you know, maybe there's like an offhand comment on, oh, this person was away for a number of years, or blah 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 blah, or no one really knows what led them to be like this. You know, I don't know. Then maybe I've got some interest there. And Rosemary's Baby is a good film. I haven't seen it for a very long time, but it is a good film. But did I feel that I needed to know more about one particular character that has quite a small but prominent role in Rosemary's Baby? I'd forgotten about them, to be honest, completely. But this essentially details what led up to the moments in Rosemary's Baby. That may be a little bit of a spoiler, but I feel when we talk about prequels, it's kind of difficult to discuss plot points without going into any sort of spoiler territory. Because ultimately, depending on how the prequel is dealt with, if it relates to any characters that have a crossover to the film it's coming earlier than, you naturally will know the fates of some or all of the people involved that have that crossover. It's shot very well. I think who's the lead in this? Julie Garner, who I'm not really familiar with her. I think she's mainly known for the Ozarks, I want to say. I'll have a quick little look. Yeah, Ozark was a big role for her. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, I couldn't really remember. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, I have seen that. It's a very good film. Can't remember who she's in it. But yeah, I suppose more recently it would probably be the Ozark. But she is very good in this, I'll give her that. The imagery for the demonic presence, which isn't a spoiler because the big reveal of Rosemary's Baby is the demonic presence, the demon, the devil, Satan, whoever. Slightly different look in this. It's not too much focus, which I think is quite a good way to go about it, but kind of jazzed it up a little bit, which wasn't that fussed with. It's just ultimately, like, the music is good in it. It sets the scene. There's a few moments of tension, but there weren't really any moments where I felt panic for the character, really. There certainly wasn't any tension built up enough, I felt. You do feel hopeless as it enters the finale for her situation. But I guess there's when it comes to a prequel, there's always going to be that feeling of, well, we know that it's probably only going to go one way based on what comes next. And I just always find that knowing basically how something is going to end before watching it, for me, takes out some of the interest, because I like to go along for the ride. I know some people don't mind spoilers. Some people will, read up on what happens in a film before watching it to understand whether they think they're going to like it or not. And that's fine. That's great. But yeah, I couldn't help but just feel this is quite unnecessary. And it wasn't, where the first Omen I felt was kind of unnecessary. It was still decent. There was a couple of quite creepy shots in there. In this, not a lot really stands out. It's fine, but incredibly forgettable. I'm going to give it 5.5 out of 10 for Apartment 7A. It's just a bit of a nothing film, really. Good performances, good music, shot well, but did I care about it? Not really. No. 5.5. And then finally, VHS Beyond, the ever continuing highs and some lows series. VHS Beyond, 2024 found footage science fiction horror anthology, and the 7th installment and 9th overall in the VHS franchise. The film features segments from Jordan Downey, Christian and Justin Long, Justin Martinez, Virat Pal, Kate Siegel, and Jay Shield. As per usual, talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, give you a score out of 10. Now, this is broken down into the number of stories. There's this whole interlude wraparound story, which is the weakest wraparound, I think, so far in the VHS films I've seen. Don't take this as a negative for the film, because we'll get to the score, and I probably should have come to this as a negative a bit later on, but it opens the film and continues throughout between the segments. And I feel in terms of wraparounds, it just wasn't that good. Now, this does have a sci-fi feel to it, and the wraparound story is in regards to footage supposedly found for extraterrestrials. And a Redditor has supposedly bought some mysterious video cassettes from a flea market that contain an alien encounter. But we won't focus too much on that. I do think that the wraparound is kind of poor in comparison to, let's say, the original film. I want to say, I think it's like 95. It's either 95 or 99, whichever one of those two that I preferred, which I think was 95. That had a pretty good wraparound story. Like a police raid. Whichever one had the police raid wraparound story, that was very good. This one, it's not that good. Stalk is our first story. Amidst a string of baby disappearances, a police unit has a private meeting late at night after having narrowed down the location of the house the babies have been taken to. They bring their newest member, Segura, who's tasked with filming throughout the night. Another member, E.T., is revealed to be one of the fathers of the missing babies. They find a dilapidated easy for me to say, house, and spot what appears to be a shambling zombie-like person. Okay, Stalk is mad. And Stalk is one of the early entries in this that had me questioning how much I'm going to enjoy this. And I say that in a weird way because it has a good mixture, but it has this tone that is happening a bit more in the VHS films that I find a little bit less interesting. And I think that's something more with found footage, where the focus can sometimes come down to more so, here's what we can achieve with found footage. You know, here's what we can achieve with handycam or, you know, body cam footage, rather than creating moments of tears and whatnot. Where things just look a bit too clean. And I guess that does come down to the fact that modern cameras can be tiny and give incredible like 4K footage. So you're gonna lose that dirtiness along the way. It's just natural. And I guess that does play in part to how I enjoyed more so some of the other stories that took that VHS feel, because I do feel that as we're getting more up to date with the different era settings that occur, they're not, you know, they haven't always been set in particular years or decades, but it's more recently that they've had, you know, a period setting, you know, 99, 95, 88, I think, or 86, whatever it was. But I was initially kind of thinking, are we going to kind of continue down the style over substance route? But this first story is pretty much a zombie outbreak with a supernatural feel to it. And the reveal of the supernatural source, I'll just say the story's called Stalk. You can have a think about that as to what that means. I thought that development of the story was pretty good. And the violence is pretty good in it. I just felt that it was kind of teetering on that line of, well, okay, you know, it's just going down that route of we're going to do a zombie attack film, but on the found footage, but with a bit of a comedy sort of comedy-esque moments in it. We've kind of seen that less the comedy done in Wreck very well. But zombies are zombies, and these aren't necessarily proper zombies. There are some creepy visuals in this, I will say, and the finale of it was pretty gnarly and messed up. We have another wraparound story. We go to Dream Girl. Mumbai native paparazzi Arnab and Sony are given a tip to get footage of the latest Bollywood sensation Tara. Arnab presents celebrities as he has had dreams of being famous himself, implying that him becoming a paparazzi hound is his way of getting closer. They sneak into a filming session of her next movie, which ends abruptly when her manager gets infuriated at the amount of takes the director is using and demands Tara goes on a break. After leaving the set, Arnab sneaks into her trailer and hides in the closet. Tara then enters the trailer with her manager, who berates her. Arnab accidentally reveals himself when, while hiding in the closet, discovers what appears to be another face in a bowl. So we'll end it there. This one... So whilst this has a sci-fi feel, it's not all extraterrestrial. And I think some people kind of assumed that it was just purely aliens. It's not. We have more of a cybernetic route in this one. There's parts that I liked of this, in terms of the reveal of this cybernetic appearance, I'll just say. I don't want to give too much away. It did feel like it was kind of going down the Terrifier route of the focus being purely on gore as opposed to scares. Now, it can work in the various settings, and, you know, I've had mixed feelings over the years in the Terrifier series. We've talked about that to death. But it did feel like it was kind of gore for gore's sake in this. It looked great. It didn't really feel like VHS to me. We had a lot of these different camera cuts to various different shots. That does make sense because this is on a film set, so there will be various shots around. But I guess we have to always remember when it comes to VHS that this is found footage, and you normally associate found footage with this is the footage that was found, as opposed to we found and collated various shots together. I guess it really depends on how it is put together and how it's portrayed in this. But the idea being that this is various videos that have been found of alien or supernatural or extraterrestrial interactions. We had to kind of just bear that in mind. But ultimately, with these VHS films, it's kind of about the fun and the scares that you have. And this one was all right. Visually, it was quite interesting. It did just feel that it was focused more on gore than creating any real scares. But some inventive deaths in it for sure. Next is Live and Let Dive. Zach is celebrating his 30th birthday with his wife Jess, best friend Logan, and numerous other acquaintances via skydiving. Just before they're ready to jump off, they spot a UFO and several fighter jets. An alien jumps onto the plane before it collides with the UFO, sending everyone falling towards an orange grove, some dying from the collision. As he's in the air, Zach sees an alien butcher someone. He opens his parachute and survives the fall, but discovers that Logan, who was strapped onto him, was decapitated when they landed. This one again, it's fun, but it certainly to me felt like style over substance in terms of the great crazy shots we can get with CGI in a found footage. And it did initially have me wondering about the quality of this film as we got into this story, because yeah, great moments, but we have that kind of, you see it a lot on social media now, that look of putting CGI in supposedly real footage to make it look like, oh look, we've caught something fantastical happening in the distance. That's not something that really interests me that much. I mean, the original Cloverfield did that quite well, sure, but this where you got these kind of quick scans and then these kind of shaky zoom ins, but it's all done just a little bit too cleanly, don't interest me all that much. The aliens in this, while the CGI isn't amazing, they do look quite menacing, and the way that they kill is pretty unique. It did have a genuinely good jump scare in it as it gets towards its final few moments, when there's the typical thing, if you're looking in one direction at something, when you pan back there's something else there. And this is involved in a scene that's in a van or a truck. And that genuinely made me kind of startled. Like, I think I even audibly yelped. That was very good. And we do get some nice shots when people or persons are being taken up into space. But that then does raise one of the questions of, okay, well, how did this footage get back on Earth if they've been abducted into space? Again, you have to wonder whether you're asking too many questions from a film. It's found footage. It is, you know, basically an anthology film. But there's little things here where you go, well, it's a great way to end a short, sure. I know that's a bit of a spoiler, but we're talking science fiction here. But, you know, it depends on if I feel like I'm picking holes or not, and sometimes I probably am a little bit. Next up, this one has apparently proved to be quite divisive online. Fur Babies, which was directed and written by Justin and Christian Long. Becky runs a supposed dog daycare centre called Doggy Dream House and keeps taxidermies of her past dogs. An animal rights activist group decide to investigate her home and send members Stuart and Angela along with their leaders Miles's dog Pickles. Becky reveals the amenities of her home. She explains the reason she keeps taxidermies of her past dogs is because she doesn't have the heart to bury them. One of the dogs, Gary, is missing, but Becky explains that she has something special planned for him, as he died protecting her. However, Becky quickly sees through Stuart and Angela's ruse due to Stuart's incompetence. Stuart and Angela then meet Becky's brother, Beau, who doesn't talk a lot. Becky then takes him to the basement when she reveals that other people have come asking her questions, and we get the reveal of what it is she's doing to them. So, a little bit of a mild spoiler here. Skip ahead 10 seconds if you don't want to hear it. This is Justin Long's almost version of Tusk. I think the performances are kind of what save this to an extent. There's been a lot of people finding this one of the weakest stories in the segment. I think it is quite creepy, but like in terms of the kills, it's just kind of typical animal attack, but the animals are human size. Yeah, it's fine. It's quite a short. It's not overtly gory. It is quite creepy. I certainly would say, if you had to say, do I prefer fur babies or Tusk? Is it Tusk or Husk? Tusk. Yeah, definitely prefer fur babies. Tusk was terrible. Yeah, not a standout moment, and I was kind of quite interested to see what Justin Long directed horror entry would look like. Yeah, it's shot well. It has that VHS feel, like the camera quality that cuts between the various cameras, because there are a couple of different cameras here. Have that VHS feel for me, so it catches the feel. It's okay. It's a bit of a, it's a bit of a mixed entry. And then finally we have Stowaway, which I wasn't sure what to expect. Now, it's written by Mike Flanagan, directed by his wife Kate Siegel, who's appeared in a number of his projects. But it stars Alana Pierce. So, Alana Pierce plays Haley, a woman who is implied to have left her husband and child behind, is documenting her findings of possible extraterrestrial encounters in the Mojave Desert. She talks to people who say they saw lights. At night, she witnesses a light fall from the sky. She goes to investigate it as she finds a spaceship. She enters and examines the interior. When she cuts herself, small nanites come out and heal her, though she quickly learns that it causes minor mutations due to the ship keeping other animals in stasis and copying their DNA. The story really kind of ramps up in this, but that's your initial kind of setup without going too much further into it. This has the VHS look and feel, I will definitely say. I loved that VHS appearance of like the damaged video look. I wasn't too sure what to expect from Alana Pierce. So Alana Pierce has previously been a video games journalist. I know her more from Funhouse, which now it's not on anymore, a YouTube comedy gaming series. And she had joined the cast. I don't know if she was at IGN at the same time, but joined the cast when I'd been watching for a little while. And I mean, decent interactions with the other cast members, but I think the thing that I thought was a bit odd was I just didn't think she was generally that funny. And obviously, it's a comedy podcast, or not podcast. There is a podcast, but a comedy YouTube channel. So it's a bit odd when you have a comedy show, and everyone but one has their own kind of funniness. But I don't know. Maybe the humor was just not my sort of humor, so it's lost on me a bit. Not to rag on anyone. But she's gone to do various things, and I think this is her first like lead acting job. So I did have that initial kind of, gonna be honest here, initial sort of prejudice of thinking, oh, is this just a case of getting jobs for friends, like, getting matey with the different sort of circles, and that just opens up doors for you, and like if that's like a form of like nepotism, I don't know. There's a bit of bias really, which I think is actually quite unfair on my part, because her performance in this is pretty good actually. You'd never guess that she's actually Australian because she has a pretty good American accent in it. And you do genuinely believe that this is a woman who is aware that she has her failings, in terms of there's a moment when the video cuts to like a birthday party and cuts back and she realizes she's actually taped over a video she probably shouldn't have, and kind of feels a bit shit about that, but then quickly because it's all right, there'll be other birthdays. So that really shows her obsession with the extraterrestrials. I can't remember if we get much mention of why that is, if there had been any sort of reason why she'd just gone full on into this, but she is really just obsessed with catching some form of alien life. But as her exploration ends up going into this spaceship, which you can't really see what the spaceship looks like, and I think that works well because you're pretty much in the dark a lot of it, and then seeing just this weird sort of like biomechanical interior to the ship. It's when you get the shots of the mutations that it is quite disturbing. And this is the short that will stick with you, or certainly stuck with me the most coming out of it. I wasn't expecting it to go to the places that it did, and just there's a shot near the end, and again you will have to question if this is found footage. How was this footage found? But if you try and put that to one side, try and put logic to one side, the shots you get in this do look incredible, and I think that is really helped by having the authentic VHS tape look. It just has that VHS feel when I talk about the series as a whole. So on the whole, it's a similar sort of mixed bag to the last two. I mean, 99, I'm going to have to just look at the franchise because I can never remember the order. So 99 I thought was decent, but just a little bit of a step down from 94, which I thought just really smashed it out the park again. And 85, I think there's just a few stories I didn't really like in that. There was good moments, but it was a real kind of mixed bag. Like if 99 was a step down from 94, 85 was a bit of a drop. Not terrible, bit of a drop. VHS Beyond doesn't necessarily, I don't need to say right the ship because I don't think it's in trouble. You know, they're still a good anthology series. There's still standout stories. But do I think this film would get critical? Well, does this film get critical acclaim from me? No. But I certainly felt that my fears of, is this just a typical, let's show what we can do with CGI and found footage and just focus more on capturing these crazy shots and forgetting about the whole ethos really of found footage. It just straddles that line at times. I'm going to give it a 6.5, and I do think that Stowaway is adding at least a 0.5 to that on its own. Because Stowaway is very good. I'm still interested to see what they do next, where they're going to go next with the VHS franchise. I think there's just a lot of potential for it to just kind of continue and keep growing. But I just hope that we don't forget about what really makes a good found footage short story. And the wraparound story isn't the most important. I mean, it was quite bad in this in comparison to other ones, but I don't really watch found footage films for the wraparound story. That's just kind of how you kind of connect it into being a film. But yeah, some okay to good stories in this. Nothing is particularly really bad. But yeah, mixed bag for sure. And that is it for another edition of the Ministry of Horror. Thank you very much for stopping by, whether you're checking this out on podcast platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify. If you're checking this out on YouTube, Ministry of Horror, search it on those platforms, you'll find it. On TikTok, check us out, Ministry of Horror, over on there, and X_Ministry_Horror. And then also, just to round things back up, if you're in the UK and you have bookkeeping needs, or if you're in a small business or a sole trader or a partnership and you need some accounting work done, we can have a conversation. And if it's in the remit, we can have a chat, take things further from there. So if that is of interest to you, check out my business, T.S. Eliot Bookkeeping. We are on T.S. Eliot, TSELLIOTT.co.uk, the website. Social media links are also on there, along with contact telephone number and email address, so check it out. That's me done rambling. I've missed the first half of the football, and I've got a lot of work to do, so thank you very much for stopping by, and I'll catch you again next time.